quite some time. Check it out on NFL.com. One of the teams you had as a viable option was the Cowboys. We're just going to kind of skip over that one, assuming that's probably not going to happen. He's not going to accept a backup role.
Right, and I think when I say viable option, I'm talking about maybe just keeping him through preseason in case somebody's quarterback gets hurt and they can trade him. I'm not thinking like he finishes his career with Dallas.
Right. Okay, well, let's start with one that I think a lot of people look at and say, wow, this would be a perfect scenario. The Denver Broncos, a ready-made defense to win a championship. They've already done it. Probably have another 2-year window in which they can win another Super Bowl.
Right. So you look at the good parts. I mean, you've got the wide receivers on the outside, right? You have the defense, championship caliber. But, to me, it's about the roadblocks. And, David, why sign a veteran quarterback if your offensive line struggles like they did last year and then have him go on the shelf? And not only that, but you got Trevor Siemian. You drafted Paxton Lynch. Are you just saying, hey, we'll develop those guys later?
Well, I think that Trevor Siemian would probably be the guy that would have to be moved, honestly. And then you just keep Paxton Lynch around to kind of develop him. A lot of times a good quarterback can cover up some of the things. I mean, that's hard because their offensive line did struggle in obvious passing situations. So that's something that they're really going to have to look at. If they do bring Tony Romo in, I really think Trevor would have to be the guy that would leave.
Well, let's talk about your former team, the Texans. This one also makes a lot of sense with one caveat. They paid another guy a lot of money in Brock Osweiler last year, owns $16 million guaranteed this upcoming season. Tell me the pros and cons of Houston.
Well, I think the pros are obvious. I mean, their defense played well last year without J.J. Watt. If J.J. Watt gets back in the mix, you talk about Denver's defense being good. Their defense would be good. And also, remember, Houston drafted some weapons. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They went and got Lamar Miller in free agency. You plug Romo in that mix, and it looks great. The problem is you owe $16 million to Brock Osweiler. It's guaranteed, and you don't have a lot of cap room outside of that. And also, are you just saying, okay, this is a sunk cost. We're done with this project?
Yeah, that's the hard part is there's so many issues with the money, and it would be a good fit. I think Tony Romo would be great in this system because they do demand a lot of the quarterback at the line of scrimmage, and Tony Romo has done a lot at the line of scrimmage in his time with the Dallas Cowboys. I think it would be a very comfortable fit for him. I think he would enjoy that process. I just don't know how they make it work from a schematic standpoint.
You know what? I had a little French bulldog, put a lot of money into it, couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. My uncle visited, and he said, what's the ROI right now? What's the return on investment? There was none. I was rid of the bulldog 2 weeks later. You got to get rid. You got to move on if there's no ROI.
Team.
I wish you had told that story before I wrote my article. It would really fit in well contextually.
Well, next time you write an article, come to me and I'll help you out. You also talk about potentially bumping Alex Smith from the starting spot in Kansas City.
Well, this one is just because it's been speculated about so much. So I wanted to cover all the angles that people are talking about. To me, with the Chiefs, you got to start with the fact of who you're going to pay. Dontari Poe is a free agent. It's really hard to find a quality nose tackle. So if you pay him and you try to pay Eric Berry, there's not going to be any money to sign Tony Romo, right? If you let Eric Berry go and you cut Jamal Charles so that you can make room for Tony Romo's salary, well, that's a PR hit. Letting Berry walk.
You can't let
Charles.
Berry walk.
Right. And then we haven't even got to what you do with Alex Smith. Nick Foles is gone. Remember, Chase Daniel is long gone. So who's your backup?
This one makes the least amount of sense for me. It really does. And I know that the name's been thrown around, and maybe it's a sexy pick for Tony Romo to go there because they're a good football team in a tough division. But for me, I just don't know how you swing it with exactly what you talked about with Dontari Poe, with Eric Berry. I mean, you have to bring that guy back. He's Ed Reed to me. Like when I see him play, he's a dynamic football player. I think Alex Smith also fits well in this system. His skill set is perfect for what Andy Reid wants to do, so I don't know how they make this one work.
Okay, let's move on to the Bears. You talk about Romo wanting to win a Super Bowl. He's made a lot of money in his career. That seems to be the one thing on his shelf, on his trophy shelf, that he doesn't have, right? I don't know if he's going to do it in Chicago.
No, but I think this is the best fit. And I may be in the minority. Call me Positive Perry. I don't think the Bears are as far away as people think. If you look at what they have, their offensive line performed well last year. They only gave up 28 sacks. The running backs averaged 4.6 yards per carry. That's a sign of good line play. You got Jordan Howard. You bring Alshon Jeffrey back. You got Cameron Meredith. You got Zach Miller. And that defense would have been a lot better, Dan, if the offense didn't put it in such bad positions last year. I think the Bears could be the second best team in the division.
I think the Chicago Bears deserve to be relevant. And I think that they have a good football team. They have a young, solid defense that's improved. They have some pieces there. I think Tony Romo would be a great fit here. I really like that move. It's bringing him back closer to home. I think that, obviously, at the end of your career, you start to think about that a little bit more. I know I did, so I think that's a great fit.
If I'm Tony Romo, you better promise me you're going to have Alshon Jeffrey there. Because if he walks, it's an entirely different scenario, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This has been floated out there the last day or two. If the Redskins can't agree on a long-term deal with Kirk Cousins and they trade him, say, to the San Francisco 49ers where his old OC Kyle Shanahan is, perhaps they would be interested in signing Romo if he were cut, because I can't see the Cowboys trading Romo to a division rival. How would he fit in Washington?
Right, there's so many ifs there, and you and I were talking about it in the newsroom. First of all, would Romo want to go to the Redskins? And this isn't a Brett Favre situation where I think there was a lot more animosity there. The other thing is, I can't get past Deshaun Jackson's a free agent, Pierre Garçon's a free agent, Jordan Reed's always hurt. Would he really be going to a Redskins team full of weapons? I think there's a lot of question marks there.
You know, the interesting thing for me, and this is kind of, I meant to ask you earlier, but the one that kind of pops out to me is the Jets. And, like, why wouldn't that make sense for a guy? You know, say Brandon Marshall and him are cool and they can get along.
Right.
They have Eric Decker. They have some weapons there. That might be a fit, too. There's so many different options out there for this guy right now.
They've got a veteran team already. I think money is a question. I think the Jets, they'd behoove them to look at someone like Mike Glennon before Tony Romo. I just think they're farther away.
Another interesting storyline, Mike Glennon. Like, this quarterback market's fascinating going into the offseason, just as it was last year. I don't think we're going to be talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick as much this year as we did last.